Yeah, baby. What's up, man? I tell you what, I think we need to turn that thing into a 3-minute intro rather
Right?
than a 2-minute intro because, like, it's not enough time. You know, you got to plan on at least one Twitter rug. You got to be fully rugged.
Dude,
Like,
it's so annoying how it is to set this up right now. Like it's always a pain in the ass. So give me a second, everybody.
dude, it's not like I'm telling you, we should probably change that intro thing to like a 5-minute timer, man. Because
Right?
it's literally, it's never enough time, man. It's never enough.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to repost all the links. So everyone, hang in here for 1 second. We're gonna get this started. But Adam,
I literally just saw that Jake just changed his name to Jake.xbt. So that's pretty cool. And so we'll start bringing you guys up. I'm going to be a co-host right now. Dogfather, I'll bring you up, man. And dude, the rugs are this is an important part of crypto Twitter. If you're not getting rugged, are you even a part of crypto Twitter? It doesn't seem like it. Dogfather, you there, man? What's up, dude?
Never fails in this space that anytime I set it up and I'm like trying to add all the different co-hosts and send out the link and everything, and it rugs and you're like, God damn it, dude. But here we are. We're here back for another fun space. Man, it's been a long ass week, I have to say. Jesus. I can't even believe we managed to spin up a random 3.5 hour live stream of an auction. Like I was telling you, I went out last night and I went out last night to the club and I was telling my friends about what I'd been into and trying to explain to my friends what I do is the hardest thing to do.
Well, there are these things called ordinals. And then there are negative ordinals, which they call cursed ordinals. And the people are like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? You're living in fantasy land, Jake.
Fantasy land, I tell you. Fantasy land. Yeah, it's I'm gonna have to delete this, but yeah. So I went out to, it's called Zook nightclub out in Las Vegas at one of the casinos, and I was out there with some of my friends who were in town who are also like crypto people as well. Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, bro, what have you been up to? And I was like, yeah, you know, I've been we worked on this product all week called Curse Ordinals, and they're like Solana guys, and they're like, what the fuck is that?
Bro, it's amazing too, right? Like you'd figure, oh, Solana guys, they got to be paying attention to what's happening on Bitcoin. It's like, no, they're not. They have no fucking idea what's happening on Bitcoin, right?
No idea. So everyone who's in here, make sure you retweet the new space because the last link,
dead link.
Last link is a dead link. We're gonna get everyone in here. Dogfather, what's good? GM.
Hey, GM guys. I mean, if you have such a title, if you're cursed, I mean, you should not be surprised that you're rugged, right? I mean, that's like, it's provocative. But I'm fully with you guys. I mean, this week again was fully packed with news and stuff. And I mean, we could easily talk a few hours about that. So I'm really looking forward to that. I was playing around with Recursives a bit, dabbling with that. I think this has so much potential. Really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I saw you. Was that you that made like a website or something on an ordinal, or you did something unique? Tell me.
I saw that guy did spin up. There was one website spun up. That wasn't you though, was it, Dogfather?
Yeah, so there was one dude spinning up a website, but he was saying then, okay, I don't have time to do a 1-minute video. So then I was trying to do that on my own, put up some video to help some people do that as well. Because it's really not complicated. If you have 1 or 2 hints, everyone can do that. So I was putting that video on there. It has so much potential. I mean, you have 10 million inscriptions, and you can basically put everything and reference to everything, including code and including further inscriptions. I mean, I think, wow, this will be really a game changer.
Yeah, I really need to figure out what this. I mean, I've been following the recursive stuff. Everyone is really big on it. I need to know like what are the limitations of this? Can I just put the internet on Bitcoin now? Like, what is going on here?
I know Tio was looking to put like Nintendo video games on, which are supposedly pretty light. And Dogfather, maybe you can give like the kind of dumbed down version of what this means. I mean, for me, tell me how I'm wrong. Basically, if I do a bunch of inscriptions. I can then say I do 1 through 10. I can then, on my 11th inscription, basically reference all those previous 10 inscriptions, thereby saving me all the code in that example. Where the code is basically broken into 10 inscriptions and I pull them all into one final inscription. Is that basically what's happening?
I think you can do 100 things. The easiest example I could think of is really a website where you want to basically have a picture. So like in the pinned tweet. So let's say you have some picture already inscribed and you want to make a website where you show that picture, but you don't want to inscribe that again because, it costs money, it takes space. So you just have an HTML file and then reference to a previous inscription and show it. And obviously you can do that with one picture or with 100 pictures, which would then be something like a gallery, but you don't need to inscribe all the pictures again. You just, just reference to them, which is just basically one word and then the inscription ID. And some people had a pretty nice websites where you had, a slider where you say, okay, this is the first and then the second. So you could easily have, let's say you have your top 10 ordinals that you want to show. So you generate your own little gallery, right? So, I mean, these are very simple things. What the OCM people are doing, they inscribed whole packages that you need for 3D rendering and stuff. And then they reference, these 300 OCMs that you have, they reference to these packages. And then, you don't need to do that 300 times, like if you have a custom made code. So then this can really become the kind of like a computer on Bitcoin where you have hundreds or thousands of packages for all kinds of things. Once inscribed, everyone can use them forever until, Bitcoin and the ordinals die. And this can be really, really, really big, way more than, of course, than images and stuff, because hundreds of, everyone after that can use that package and have a very light inscription because using all these packages, and you don't need to have any external references. And that's important. Everything is on chain.
So there's no
reference to any.
Can we run a Bitcoin node on Bitcoin?
So there's no indexers required for this, or is there?
Obviously, everything is indexed, right? Everything on ordinals you need some indexer and but it's still everything is on chain. I'm not referenced to any AWS server where there's some package or some other external website. Everything is still inside of Bitcoin, and of course on top you have some indexer doing that to you that you see that, but you could spin up your own indexer if you like, if you don't trust them.
Interesting. Yeah, I know the indexer thing is a big question mark within the space, which we'll come to. But I did bring up Zach, who is a partner with Leo that works on Ord.io. So first, want to say hello, man. I think this is the first time we actually get to talk on stage. And then I also had a question: is how is Ord.io implementing recursive on your guys' site? Because Ord.io is just absolutely exploding. So if anyone's going to know, it's going to be Zach.
Hey, yeah, thanks. It's nice being up here. So I'll go into it a bit. So everyone's kind of doing it a similar way, where essentially we have our own API where we're requesting from our API to show all like the assets on the screen and stuff. And all that we're really doing is leveraging that existing API to use the recursive inscription. So if you go onto Ord.io now and click on one of the HTML inscriptions, you'll see there's a button kind of on the bottom where you have like the Twitter share and stuff, and it's like a little code icon. And then if you click that, you could kind of see exactly what the actual code looks like. So it could be kind of helpful to walk through it. You'll see the part of it that's recursive. It'll be like /content/ and then an inscription ID. So then essentially all that it's doing is this HTML file is then using our site to fetch whatever inscription that's pointing to, and then it's putting whatever data is returned in there, and then that will, whether you're returning an image, JavaScript, CSS, or whatever, that's what's going to show up in the inscription.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I do. We do live stream this on YouTube. I do have it pulled up right now, and this is quite unique. How many, maybe just like a random or just like a guess, like how many recursive inscriptions do you think you guys have seen since this has been implemented? What, like a few days ago?
Yeah, it's hard to know exactly. Like, certainly the trending feed has been mostly recursive stuff, but I'm sure that there's a bunch of other things that are like people have been just trying to inscribe that maybe didn't work or wasn't getting as much publicity. But like I've seen like the JavaScript just file type, it went from maybe 10 before recursive inscriptions to now I've been checking a little bit, but like way more, which is interesting. Another cool thing is that this hasn't gotten quite as much press about it, but so the content endpoint isn't the only recursive inscription endpoint that's been released. So like /content inscription ID is how you reference other inscriptions, but there were also 3 others that were just introduced, which was /block height, /block hash, and /block time. So each of those returns what you would think it returns. So like /block time will release the block time of the last block. And for this, so on for height and hash. And that also unlocks a bunch of cool stuff. Like Raf, the lead maintainer of Ord, just released this inscription that's like a live Bitcoin clock. And it's all dynamic because it's referencing this block, the block height endpoint. And yeah, I'll pin a tweet to the top, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty interesting.
So they were using that for like randomness too, right? Is that right?
Yeah, so you could use something like the block hash as like a pseudo random thing if you wanted to like leverage that in a kind of reveal randomness thing.
Hell yeah, you guys are absolutely crushing it. The homie Tim is now on stage as well. GM to you, bro. Long time to talk. Oh, all right. He's still figuring his stuff out, I guess. Zach, I just have to say, dude, Aura.io, it started with such a simple idea. And it seems the community just absolutely loves it. And the more I think about it, the way to upvote and to get these inscriptions kind of like in front of everybody, it's such a simple idea. But the way that you guys have rolled out the UI and the UX of it is incredible. So first, congrats on all you guys' success so far. I know you guys are probably first, or you guys are probably front and center for pretty much any type of new implementation onto Ordinals, because people want this to be literally in the front.
Thanks. Yeah. This week has been very busy, but yeah, like I never expected it to take off the way it did. Like Leo kind of reached out to me in I think February-ish that he was thinking about doing a Ordinals related project, and then like it sounded cool, but yeah, I never would have dreamed that like now I do this full time, and yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, congrats. I'm seeing like even people on the front page of Ord.io, people are like putting like job advertisements saying they're like Bitcoin full stack developers. Like such a simple idea. Adam, man, I want to ask about this on-chain monkey business. I tweeted this out yesterday. And I don't even know how I even managed to put this together to partially even understand what is going on here. I put out and I said, so I'm understanding this right. OCM dimensions is a recursive inscription, the HTML, that's inscribed onto a curse ordinal, which is like the op return, which is part of a parent-child ordinal. And then somebody quote tweeted this and said, it's also inscribed on January 20, 2009 SAT. So take us through first, like your minting experience of this and like your thoughts of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, Danny and the team over there are always like, well, what can we do to like maximize the boundary pushing? And I think they really pulled it off here. And to say like, I think there are probably 3 people in the world who understand exactly what they did, and it's Danny and 2 other team members. So I can't say as I fully understand what they did. But basically, what Dogfather was just explaining about the different parts of these. Being fully on-chain, 3D rendable, images. So they created that as ordinals, regular ordinals, but they're inscribed on a cursed ordinal or a negative number ordinal, which makes it kind of cool. And obviously, we've had a lot of cursed ordinal stuff happening this week, at Emblem Vault, and so that's how they basically did it. Like Danny said in one of his posts, was like, imagine you're doing this. I mean, you did, right, Jake? You did what, 69 cursed ordinals this week, inscribed and put them in Emblem Vaults. And even with that, there were a couple that like you messed up, you put them in wrong. Like it just happens. Like doing this stuff manually is really, really difficult. Imagine they had to do it for 300 in a far more complex environment. There's no wonder this thing took like over a month for them to put together. It's pretty impressive that it wasn't, totally botched. The minting experience was interesting because they released it at like 3 p.m. Eastern time. And when it released, of course, the website basically immediately crashed. We had gone on there. You had to like connect your wallet ahead of time, make sure it was all good. And we went on there. Obviously people want to mint first, even though they were like, it's going to be randomized. That was another thing. It was completely randomized too. So they used that block height feature to basically randomize which one you got. So nobody on the team knew who was going to get what. That was another feature. And but of course you go on, you still want to be like the first person to mint. Everybody wants to be the first person, whatever. And the website totally locked up and crashed. Anyway, after like an hour and a half, I was finally able to mint. They got revealed a few hours later. And it was pretty awesome, other than the minting experience, where at one point after the thing crashed, it came back up and a whole bunch of us received this message like, you're not eligible for the mint, which is like the worst. You've waited for 3 weeks, you put $2,000 in your wallet, you're ready to mint, and then they're like, you're not able to mint because you are not on the list. Anyway, that faded. We all minted, and I think it went pretty seamlessly. I haven't heard anybody who wasn't able to mint. And funny enough, Trevor Owens got the rarest of all the rares. He got like the golden.
Surprise.
Yeah. It's like, I was like, is this really random? And it was, supposedly provably random online. But T.O. pulled the 1 out of 300, got the golden goose.
The golden goose, Omar Baha. I think I said that right. Jake, you're a legend. Amazing auction yesterday. Thanks, bro. We're going to cover that in a little bit. Yeah, I do have on screen here. I believe this is Trevor's. It's got a bunch of golden shards around it. It's got an earring in. If there's anybody in the crowd too that's a OCM expert and wants to come up and talk about it, more than welcome to come on stage. Again, I try to understand this, but a lot of the technical stuff is a little bit over my head sometimes. So got to explain the concepts, but really cool. I heard that they're minting up to 2,000. So my question is like, are these just like considered the Genesis ones, or is this just like kind of we're allowing certain individuals to mint the first 300 as kind of like a marketing tactic to then kind of increase more awareness around the project?
Yeah, I think that was the strategy, right? So the first 300 basically got gifted out to, friends and family, and there's a reason why I got one, although I'm friends with Danny, but still.
Yeah, it's a marketing thing.
They were giving out, this was like a marketing play for them, smartly done. And then the next 2,000 basically go to existing OCM holders. You have to hold like, I think you have to have a full set of OCMs or whatever, and you're next on the list that is given the opportunity to mint. And it kind of goes down this list of basically you got to be an OCM holder to mint these going forward. Exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting because I actually found out the reason why it's considered cursed is because the parent-child implementation has not been added into the Ord client. So that's why it's considered cursed. It's one of those like OPs that just hasn't been added yet, which, kind of plays into it. Because I was trying to look into it, and I had somebody message me, and they're like, hey, I want to vault my cursed inscription. I was like, which one? They're like the OCM dimensions. And I went to look at it, and I was like, oh, this is recursive. We don't add HTML support. And then I started looking under the hood of like, what else is going on here? And that's when I saw the parent-child and all these other things. And I think we're going to get, we have one of the OCM guys up here. OCM effer, dude. What a great handle, I have to say. DJ, GM, bro.
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going?
Good, man. Can you give us any more details that I might have missed as to like all the different rarities, breakdown, cursed, recursive, random? Was there anything I missed on this launch that was?
I can't do that on a Friday, but the yeah, no, so like the high level, it was 2,500 I believe total, and then these were the first 300 dimensions, which was kind of like the white list, their VIP thing for the mint.
And so when it hits the public mint, is it still the same price all around? I believe it was around 2K or 0.08 Bitcoin. Is it the same price for everyone else? Do you know, DJ?
I haven't seen a final announcement on the price for that one, but I believe it's going to be the same.
Yeah, this is, dude, easy way to raise some money, right? That's a what, 4 mil, I think, right? 4 mil, I think, to raise for the company. So that's a huge feat. We do have Indigo on stage too as well. Hold on, go ahead, DJ.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I just tweeted below the a link to it, but they also announced a little bit of alpha on this new marketplace, or that they haven't announced any details, but this Osura platform that was the minting platform, that looks like there's some more to it there. So a lot of interesting things that were released, on top of kind of this historic collection that was all done, in code, basically as SVG files, for a super low, file size mint as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw Danny was touting that initially as like how cheap the inscription costs were because of all of the different crazy stuff that he's doing on the back end. We do have another OCM on stage. It looks like actually Indigo has the dimensions as PFP. So excited to hear.
Hey, Jake. Good morning. Yeah, I instantly changed it once I got it to this PFP. I've been very excited and looking forward to it. And the one thing actually, though, I would slightly change in what was described earlier about the minting process was that this was, we weren't actually minting at that time when we were trying to, claim our OCM. Basically, we were signed in PSBT, and then later on, after 4 p.m., there was a reveal. So it was, no one knew what they had until that reveal happened. And no one could see actually what was going on until that reveal. So I thought that was a really cool, that apparently is a first. Any questions? Shoot.
Yeah, actually, I want to dive a little bit into this because Casey actually tweeted this yesterday, and then I saw Danny tweet and said that this is what they did as well. So Casey Roddenmore, the creator of Ordinals, said you can also use recursion to do delayed reveal collections. The content or attributes used to generate the contents of each item in the collection are encrypted using a key which is loaded from an unpublished inscription. Before the inscription is published, its content endpoint returns 404, and the item displays some fallback image. After the inscription is published, the key can be retrieved and the inscription content decrypted and rendered. Holy Jesus. I don't know what's going on here, but Casey just introduces crazy concepts that it seems like Danny is always front running.
Bro, I think Danny's behind the scenes writing these concepts, man. Let's be clear. I think Danny's kind of like the driving force to half of this stuff, man.
Yeah, dude. Really props to Danny. I'm hoping to get him on the podcast one of these days because I need to pick his monkey brains, I guess, in essence.
It's definitely collaborative, I've been very involved with Ordinals on Litecoin. This is my first Bitcoin Ordinal, but I've actually been talking about Ordinals since late January. February 1st, I think, was my first tweet. But yeah, like what they're doing is a lot of firsts, and it's very collaborative. Danny has actually, Anthony on Chain ported Ordinals onto Litecoin. He invited a bunch of us Litecoiners into some of this talk that was going on behind the scene, and so it's very collaborative, very open, and I'm pretty sure Danny and Casey are talking with one another.
So Indigo, maybe you can answer this. I just recorded a podcast with Luke Wright, who is kind of one of the leaders in the Litecoin Ordinals, and maybe this is some alpha so you guys can know. Luke told me also that the Litecoin Ordinals team is working on recursive inscriptions. But he told me something which I thought was insane. I have no idea how this works. He said they're working on recursive inscriptions that can interact with Bitcoin inscriptions as well. which to me, cross-chain interactive inscriptions, ordinals. Do you know a little bit more about this?
It's crossed my mind. I haven't really talked in detail about this with Luke, but we both are obviously thinking about this. We're both thinking about Litecoin ordinals, Bitcoin ordinals. And, you know, I haven't actually, as I said, I haven't talked to Luke much about it, but if you run both nodes and you run both ordinals protocols on top of it, there has to be a way to be able to just cross-reference one another, right? You're just referencing other inscriptions on Bitcoin or Litecoin. So there's I think a lot of advantages there's a lot of interesting things that could be done about this. Who knows what could be built? But you know, each chain has its trade-off. You know, Bitcoin, Litecoin. Right now, it's very cheap to inscribe on Litecoin. And also, one thing that I don't think a lot of people have considered is very minute, but the rate of blocks. Litecoin, I think, is a little bit more consistent than Bitcoin, because with Bitcoin, the difficulty adjusts every 2 weeks, as opposed to with Litecoin, it's every 3.5 days. So I don't know if that will come into play also in the future. But yeah, it's something we're starting to look into. Like, I'm not that very technical, so I would probably have to rely on Anthony or some other really good developer to be able to dive into it. But it's something that we're definitely considering.
Yeah, Litecoin ordinals is something that I've been talking about a little bit more recently, just because it feels like the infrastructure around it is starting to finally get built out. I just pulled up here on YouTube the unilit.io, which I believe is the first Litecoin ordinal marketplace that has finally surfaced. Is, from what Luke has told me, was built by a Chinese team who's just very, very invested in Litecoin ordinals, and it seems like that community also is as well. The different,
they're strong.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. But yeah. Unilit actually opened Ordex. I created the bounty to port Litecoin ordinals over to Litecoin. And then with the help of the community and the support, you know, we were able to get a bunch of other bounties done as well. Mempool.space has been ported over. Open Ordex, going back to the marketplaces, that was also ported over. And actually, Luke and the developer James it was ported over a while ago, but it wasn't really publicly announced. But they're looking to integrate it with Litecoin Labs. And then there's also Liteverse. They're working on their marketplace. And yeah, there's actually some big exchanges as well talking. So there's alpha there for you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. So I pulled up again Litecoin Labs. From what my understanding, what Luke has explained to me, Litecoin Labs is almost like a cohort of all of the Litecoin ordinal kind of leaders and devs. It's a handful of people who are using bounties to get a lot of this stuff built. And I think that's kind of what's accelerated some of the process here. And yeah, it's exciting times. There's again, Litecoin, right? It's much cheaper to inscribe. There's also the Mimblewimble, which is right, private transactions. So the kind of idea of private NFT transactions is interesting. I don't know if there's
I don't know if that will really play out as like Mimblewimble is really cool. And I think that there's a lot of, so basically, you know, Ordinals is a way to serialize every single Satoshi. And Mimblewimble actually takes that away. So when you do a Mimblewimble transaction between me and you, people are not going to be able to see that ordinal value assigned to those Satoshis. So they are able, like, it's not perfect privacy. I know this is a little bit more detail, I guess, but it's not perfect privacy. Where if you are a sophisticated actor, you would, with enough resources, you would be able to see that, okay, I sent you some money, but you still wouldn't be able to see what ordinal I sent you. There could be some actually interesting games that you could develop with this. Like if someone were to throw in a bunch of high valued ordinals into Mimblewimble, I can imagine it kind of becoming like a lottery where, you know, people would send Litecoin into their peg into the Mimblewimble and peg back out and see if they could actually get that ordinal. Kind of like what people are trying to do, like with sat hunting. There could be some other cool things involved with that, but I think that this also gives Litecoin a big advantage over Bitcoin with ordinals because those fungible transactions are not really going to also compete with non-fungible transactions because it's in a different block space, basically, but it's still secured by the base block. Anyways, sorry. Yeah, I could dive into details, but I know that could get boring and lose viewership.
Hey, hey, honestly, that's why we're here. So yeah, so from what Luke explained to me, kind of like how Mimble works, he said he had toyed around with it a little bit. It's almost like sending your NFTs, as you explained, kind of into like a Tumblr or a CoinJoin, and then it gets dispersed out. So there is some, anonymity to it. The thing, though, for me, what I think about is like, I guess you'd say anonymous transactions with NFTs. It's a little bit tough because all NFTs are unique, right? So it's not like, so it's like if I'm going to send Adam an anonymous NFT, everyone knows that Adam's still going to hold it because it's that unique kind of identifier. But using it for kind of, game theory, or I guess gambling in essence, or lotteries, is probably a pretty good use case. That's always typically the case here.
Again, also, I could definitely be wrong. With it, Mimblewimble, people aren't really using it right now because there's no light wallet. So my experience is very limited, and who knows? As we've seen with On-Chain Monkey, and what Danny has done, these engineers, they work magic in the background.
Yeah, they do as well. It's exciting time for Litecoin. I'm following along. Lots of innovations. And speaking of that, Curse Ordinals, man, what a week. Yeah, finally time to cover this. I haven't even been able to, I've been recording tutorials while I've been kind of like building this product out. And so for those listening, I'm trying to get out the tutorials at the beginning of next week, or maybe some lighter versions this week, because there are a ton of questions around this, a lot of confusion, which, is definitely warranted, because it took us, honestly, even a few days to really figure out what was even going on. And Adam, I think you left the stage.
Yeah, I just rugged myself. I was trying to update the title and literally just hit the wrong button, and I'm rugged.
Yeah, but yeah, so I posted a tweet from Emblem, just of like the basic idea. It is now actually, so it's on OpenSea, it's on Blur. We had to get in contact with Blur to really even figure that out. So that'll be exciting, especially for some of the stuff that we'll talk about later. But yeah, so let me dive in a little bit to what Curse Ordinals are. So Curse Ordinals, and if there's any more technical people up here that says I'm wrong or wants to add any additional information, then please let me know. So basically, the short story is these are essentially like bugged, right, or unindexed kind of type ordinals that Casey had described as cursed, right? Which basically, I guess to put in a layman's term, they basically said, we're just going to assign these negative numbers, and as we find more of these, we'll put them to the back, and then we'll figure it out later. So from my understanding, there's like OP2 through like OP70 or something like that could be considered cursed, which just means that it hasn't been included into the protocol. So there is a ton of these that could happen. And since the inception of Ordinals to now, they've found, I don't know, like 5 or 6 different ones. So they added them to the back. Of course, degens are going to be degens, where they figured this out and they created an inscription tool to purposely mint
to make more of them.
more of these unindexed ones. And one of them that was very popular is called OP66, which I believe is like the majority of most of these. The Ord client, actually, the Ord team decided not to include these for, I believe, technical reasons, although it seems to be a social consensus split. So the only tool right now that you can go to is actually called Looks Ordinal to inscribe them directly. And now we decided to build a curated collection for multiple reasons. One, because we like to build cool shit and test kind of the boundaries of where technical innovation could be. Two, we also like to solve problems. So what we found out is that there's currently no ordinal. There's only one, or let me see, there's only one Bitcoin wallet that supports Curse Ordinals, which is Sparrow Wallet, because it has coin control. There's only one marketplace that offers cursed ordinals, which is called Odyssey, but they don't have a wallet support. So I even went on and bought one, and then it just kind of disappeared into my wallet. And I was like, well, I guess that's the end of that one. And so what we did is we provided wallet support with our Taproot wallet and a marketplace to sell on, right? Which is OpenSea and Blur. So we're providing a solution to a problem that existed. Of course, that warrants, right, all kinds of confusion because only a certain amount of these curse ordinals, because there's a variety of these, can even be included in this. And as we're figuring it out, right, we're talking with devs, we're talking with the team to see. And so the details that we added is we're indexing. We decided to index using the Ord client 0.6, which is what the Ord core team has implemented. We decided that's the source of truth. There are, like if you use Rarity Gardens Explorer, and this is actually where a lot of confusion came in. They actually, we found out, they index all curse ordinals as bound. So they're basically saying, we're going to include everything as a typical ordinal. So when you use theirs, it shows all of the wallet addresses that these exist in, whereas when you send a curse ordinal that's unindexed or unbound to a wallet address, it'll appear that it's in a miner's wallet, which starts with like a 3 or a Coinbase wallet. And so this causes all confusion because then what was happening was users were sending their curse ordinal into a vault in the curse ordinal collection. And on ordinals.com, it was showing a miner's address. And then you go on a Rarity Garden, it was showing the vault address inside the vault. And so people were like, what is really going on here? And it was because the Ord client doesn't consider them approved, I guess, in essence. And so then we dive into even more details and we're like, well, why are these not included? And it has to do with OP66. And also, too, if you use inscriber.com to inscribe your curse ordinals, which I believe is where a lot of the inscriptions were happening, is not included. And also, if you're using Lux Ordinal before May 27th, is also considered unindexed, right, or unbound. And I even have the tweet up here from Rarity Gardens saying that. So a lot of confusion that was happening, and we've been working to try to figure out what it was, and we came up with a lot of solutions. And so we decided to partner with a creator. His name is Bunzi, and we inscribed 69 cursed mullets. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but Mullet Punks has kind of been like this ordinal meme community that's kind of gotten a lot of traction. And so we decided to partner with him. And we had an auction yesterday. It was a lot of fun. The top sale was for 0.92 WETH, and I'll pull up the OpenSea here in a second. And we did a live stream for about 3.5 hours. And we're going to be working on this together to try to make sure that everything is included as the Ord client updates. But we've decided that we're not going to, or it's likely we're not going to create some sort of custom indexer to include things that that the Ord client doesn't, because there's multiple reasons for this. One being, if we create a custom indexer, people start vaulting and buying and selling, and then all of a sudden the Ord core team decides that they don't want to include it. Right now, that's kind of on us for facilitating those trades. So there's a lot going on here. And if there's anyone in the crowd that has questions, please come on stage, or anyone who's on stage that has questions, because we're also still, learning this. I do feel like we do have a pretty good grasp now of what's going on here. But man, Adam, what a wild week then. What are your thoughts on curse ordinals and this last week of building these kind of like cutting edge technologies?
Well, dude, I'm still waiting for the cursed ordinals that I inscribed 10 days ago to show up in my Xverse wallet, and like, this is how early we all are. Like, none of this stuff is figured out yet. It's all like work in progress. And like, dude, you just went through the process of moving these from Sparrow Wallet, which, if anybody in the audience has ever used Sparrow Wallet, what a disaster that is from a user experience perspective. That you only messed up a couple of them is a big deal. Like, it's almost impossible that you didn't lose some of these things, right? It's such a challenge technically. And so the reality is that for most people, buying these on OpenSea is actually the best way to buy these things, because it's just, how else are you going to buy these things? You're going to buy them like OTC and trust, but how are you going to even know you got it in your wallet? Because wallets don't support them yet. So, I was really psyched that we were able to get this done at Emblem Vault, and Shannon was able to like basically push through all this tech to get it done, because, being able to have people be able to buy and sell things safely is a big deal. And so I'm pretty psyched. I pinned up top, I pinned a link to the OpenSea so everybody can check it out. And it was fun to do the mullets. The mullets and Bunzi did a good job just getting those out and get them done. But just to show off what's possible of this multi-chain future, which right now is super clunky. Like, it's clunky. And, it's just, we're going to look at this. I'm convinced people are going to look back on this and laugh. Like, in a decade, this is going to be so hilarious that you had to use, 2 different wallets, 4 different services, indexers. When all of this stuff is invisible, then we know we've arrived, right? But it's like, you don't get to invisible tech until you go through the pain of building the tech. And I think, the last 2 weeks have been a testament to what, people can do to build stuff that works. And so I'm super psyched about that.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Dogfather has his hand up. I know you're going to have something good to say.
I mean, Adam, the good thing is, if now everything is clunky and you see what's going on, right? In a few years, everything is in the background and you just click a button and say buy, and then it's there and it's shown in a second. Now you see how everything is working, how the transactions are working. You go to this clunky, wallet and you see everything, you go to an Explorer, you understand stuff, right? This is why I like these clunky things a lot. I mean, I come from Counterparty, right? You know what?
Dude, we're in the few. We're in the handful of people who actually do this stuff, man.
Yeah, but we understand actually what is going on behind the scenes, right? And I think this is extremely powerful if you understand how stuff is working. And we can play around with these things right now. I mean, with recursive inscriptions, I mean, you understand what's going on if you know what's going on behind the curtain. And we can play around, and some gifted artists do amazing things at the moment because they know how the stuff is working, and they can play around with that, plus putting that on some exotic sats, plus, all kind of things. You have many dimensions. So I think for conceptual artists, this is really the right place to be at the moment.
Ooh, that's a good quote. If you're a conceptual artist, Ordinals is the space you want to be in.
It's the right place to be. Yep.
That's a very, very solid quote to say. Might have to borrow that.
No, I'm already tweeting it.
Oh, DJ, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, I was just gonna build on that. Like, I think one of the things that Danny hasn't talked about, and I don't understand how it's gonna work exactly, but this idea of generative art on Bitcoin, directly on Bitcoin, and building tools for builders and artists like myself, people that are creating or experimenting with this new technology, to be able to access it, through the different tools and things that they're building for the community, I know is a big priority for him. So, I can, using P5JS and like some of the other technologies, that they're using for this dimensionsment, his goal is really to help, other artists and creators and designers to put out collections to mint them directly, and to have the reveal mechanic and all the other kind of heavy lifting done kind of behind the scenes. So I'm excited to see, kind of what's next for On-Chain Monkey.
Yeah. Danny's has kind of helped me think about Bitcoin in a creative way, of that there are a lot of different dimensions, right? That's kind of the point. You can use the block space as creativity. You could use the SAT as a creative outlet. You can use the different type of data stored as a creative outlet because it's different types. I'm sure there's more different types that are going to be introduced. Like, for example, here, I think we have a new meta that might be emerging, which is burning. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Ordinal MaxiBiz rolled up an app and said that if you burn a CryptoPunk, you can get on their whitelist for their Block 9 collection, which I believe is like up to 1,000 now at this point. I haven't seen anyone that's going to do this, but I was actually going to throw out a tweet, which I'll probably do right after this, unless someone front runs me, is, can I send a V1 punk in and burn it? I would consider doing that, honestly, but I think he's been saying it's for V2. I don't know if it's worth it. I guess the question is it worth it? Right now, the floor of Ordinal Maxi Biz, I believe, is like 90K. It's like 3 Bitcoin. So if you burn a CryptoPunk, which is around the same value, I guess you get to free mint whatever it is for their next collection. So essentially, it's kind of this idea of like transferring value. I don't know if it's worked so far. That's kind of like the whole idea of bridging stuff, is trying to allocate that value or that transfer of value over. I don't know. You think Adam? What do you think? You think anyone?
Bridging is stupid, dude. Bridging is dumb. Teleburning is stupid. It's just dumb. Like, I get it. They're basically saying trade in your shitcoin, come over to the mother chain. Like, I get it. It's fun to do that sort of stuff, but you know, and this is a nice way. Like, are they going to get anybody? Of course not, man. Well, they might get somebody who's super rich. You know, maybe Jason Williams will burn one just for, you know, for the likes and retweets. You know, but for normal people, this is nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. Teleburning, I'm sorry, Casey, I totally disagree with you. Teleburning is stupid. It doesn't make any sense. In the same way that bridging is stupid. It creates a brand new asset on the chain, on a new chain. It's dumb. Like, it doesn't work. This is why Emblem Vault, this is what we do, man, right? It's like the original asset stays on the original chain and you can trade it or do whatever you want on the new chain. This is what it's about. The idea of like me sending it to a burn address and then minting a brand new one is fucking stupid. Dumb. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense from a provenance perspective, period. It just doesn't. It just doesn't.
I think Leo had said in his spaces, he said, if you want to burn anything, make sure it's not 2019 or before. 2020 or newer, go ahead, go have fun, but do not destroy the historical provenance of it. Ethord, go ahead.
Yeah, totally building off of what Leo was saying. I think there's a time and a place for doing that, interacting. I mean, look at what Manifold did just on ETH. There was all sorts of games. You'd mint an open edition, you'd burn it, it'd lead to something else. If you want to do that across bridges and for new projects, I think that's awesome. But when it comes to burning a historical project, something that's timeless, to then get something that's brand new, I mean, that's a cautionary tale. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I said it like when I've talked about bridges and this sort of stuff before. I'm like, dude, if it's Starbucks reward points, fuck yeah, of course, dude. Like, that level of NFT, 100%, 1,000,000%, yes, but not for fucking like CryptoPunks. What the fuck? Are you crazy?
Well, I just sent a tweet out to ZK, so let's see if he answers. I asked if he accepts V1s. If that's in, we might see an onslaught. I mean, I think a V1 punk right now is about 4 ETH.
4 ETH, yeah.
So, you know, and that makes it 20,000, right? Maybe I'll send a curse mullet punk, and that'll be that'll suffice. Dogfather, and then we'll call DJ after.
Yeah, I was just saying, like, don't tell Robness. I mean, he's already clicking on burning a few punks, right? I mean, you never know, right? Someone may just do that, just, you know, for the lols, you know, for the culture. And never say never. I mean, let's see what's going on.
Who was sucking? Was it Dogfather? Was it you who tweeted out that somebody looked into it and it was for, oh geez, it was the donation page for Pirate Bay. And did you guys see that?
That was Dogfather tweeted that.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So Pirate Bay, you know, you guys who were back in the old streaming days when you know, pirated videos and music and stuff, they had a Bitcoin donation address on the homepage of the website, and a bunch of like historic NFTs got thrown in there, including a test counterparty asset, which I thought was pretty cool. Dogfather, you tweeted about that.
Yeah, fantastic. Go ahead, DJ.
I was just gonna say, you know, it's kind of the idea for Teleburn is super interesting. If you know the kind of macro goes to, you know, Ordinals over ETH NFTs in the next cycle, you know, I could definitely see a scenario where some types of projects, for instance, like the Doodles, that's an ETH project, somebody launching an option, like almost like a vampire attack in a game, where you could burn that for an ordinal, and build new communities based on some of those old assets. So I don't know, it's kind of a fun gamification thing to me, but we'll see where it goes.
Well, let's build on it. Let's play out the scenario. Let's say there is a meta and mass V1s and V2 CryptoPunks start getting burned. What happens? Do you think that the value actually transfers over and then is allocated to the new collection of Ordinal Maxibiz? What do you think, Adam?
0.0 chance. I mean, I guess in theory it could be like for games and still, again, super low value items, where you're building, basically you're taking from a community, taking that attention and putting it in a new community or new game. That makes some sense. That does make some sense. But anything in relation to the provenance of a piece, whether it's a piece of art or the NFT collection or community, like anything like that where provenance matters, it's nonsense. But that said, for gaming stuff, like I'm sure if they were like, hey, just send in your any 2018 or earlier and it becomes a part of a new game or whatever, like, yeah, absolutely. That could have some functionality to it. In the same way that, Christian Moss asking you, hey, you could bring your, you didn't have to burn them, but you could bring in your Spells of Genesis cards and come play, as a way to pull other communities in, for sure. I'm sure you could get some traction right now. There are a bunch of, I don't know, Yeti holders out there, right? Where your Yeti's worth $15 right now. If you start up a project on Ordinals and be like, bro, burn your Yetis and you get a Jetty on, on Bitcoin, I'm sure I'd probably do it, So stuff like that where it's super low value, I could definitely see, doing it from an awareness and attraction standpoint. That could make sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know. I asked this question yesterday when we were hosting the auctions to some of the people who are in the Ordinal Maxibiz community. Like, I asked, like, what's going on there? They said it's not. ZK came out and said that it's not a PFP collection. He's working with Nolish. Nolish is actually like catching so much fire. The rare sat stuff is just catching heat. So they're working together. They've captured definitely a lot of attention. And they tweet out these like cryptic kind of messages where you don't really know what's going on. And then they have to burn, which, it kind of goes against itself. You have Nolish, who's a rare sat hunter, but then they want you to burn essentially rare NFTs, I guess, which transfers to the Block 9 sets, which is quite abundant. I guess there's somewhat of a parallel. If you like game theory, it's cool. I don't know, though. This space is weird. You really never know what can happen. All it really takes is probably 2 or 3 people to burn a CryptoPunk before everyone kind of follows. But what do you think? Do you think, my question is, and I thought about this, so if that does happen, do you think...
It's never going to happen, dude.
Do you think Yuga Labs could offer a cease and desist to these 2 people who potentially live in... I think ZK left America. I don't know where Nolish is located. Do you think Yuga could send a cease and desist if this is burning? Like, do you remember the example of Not So Fast when he was going to burn the Magic the Gathering Black Lotus and transfer it to a token, and the Magic the Gathering company sent him a cease and desist before he was actually able to destroy it because they own the IP.
Right, they own the IP.
Could do something like that in this situation.
I mean, we've talked with Brian, the lawyer, about this a number of times and stuff. It's like you can, for example, like burning, I'm using air quote, burning a Bored Ape. All you're doing is sending it to another address, right? An address that in theory nobody controls. You can't actually destroy anything on a blockchain, right? So it's still there. You just in theory no longer control it. Does that give you, it's pretty clear from a legal perspective that you sending it to an address you don't control and then in theory reclaiming it on another blockchain doesn't exist. Like the provenance chain doesn't leave that chain. That's the whole reason why I say it's bullshit. right? I mean, it would, in theory, if you do create a bridge like the guys from, DGods did, and they went from whatever, Solana to Ethereum, and they create a new bridge, right? But from a collectability standpoint, obviously that destroys the provenance. You're reissuing, you're making a new mint to replace the old mint, which you've locked in a smart contract. It's such a clunky, terrible way to do things. Again, it works completely if you're Starbucks and you want to be on every blockchain, and they bridge all over to every blockchain so it's seamless on every blockchain. That makes sense, but it doesn't make it literally stops making sense when stuff is of any value. Like when stuff is like there's no, let's put it this way, Jake, if there's real traction for CryptoPunks to be sent to the burn address and remint on Bitcoin as ordinals, something's gone terribly wrong, and probably blockchain is over at that point. If that actually happens, like, pack your bags in, dude. It's end of the world. Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. Like, something's gone terribly wrong.
Oh boy, I'm interested to see what really happens here. I'm definitely following along. Well, like I said, I put a tweet out, so we'll see if ZK responds for the V1s. I think if he says yes, I do think if he says yes,
you're gonna do it. You're gonna do it.
I'll consider it. Yeah, I'll consider it if he says yes.
Jake's got that kind of money, man. Burn it down, baby.
It's like my life savings, but I'll do it for the culture. DJ, go ahead.
I was just going to ask a question. Like, one thing that Danny brought up that I thought was like a really salient point was, would you rather be denominated as a project in Bitcoin or Ethereum? Which I thought was just like an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah, I mean, we've brought this up multiple times, right? If you could take Emblem Vault and put it on Bitcoin, now you can start denominating CryptoPunks, not destroying the provenance, but start denominating it in Bitcoin. Like, what sounds more appealing, 50 ETH or 3 Bitcoin, right? And so you can probably push past that psychological wall of 150 ETH, which it seems like CryptoPunks and Bored Apes kind of hit and weren't able to do.
Yep.
But if you start selling CryptoPunks or denominating them with the provenance there of 10 Bitcoin, right? That sounds a lot more appealing, and maybe even attracts some of that like old school liquidity that's held for some of those individuals. So I think that is like a huge market if people can figure that out, which I hope we can.
For sure. I mean, look, the OCM, a bunch of OCMs traded last night for, 1 Bitcoin, 0.95 Bitcoin. Boy, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, does it? But it's like, it's 19 ETH, it's 20 ETH, and you're like, whoa, okay, but 1 Bitcoin doesn't sound like that much, right? So yeah, I'd love to denominate stuff in Bitcoin, man.
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of inevitable when the technology. I wonder if recursive inscriptions has a play there. That's a big value.
Give away the secrets, Jake. Come on, man.
Right?
I mean, proprietary IP, brother.
Hey. We talked about this yesterday on the stream. The idea is 10% or 5% of the battle. It's execution is really what it comes down to.
Yep.
Right. Even just from the Emblem side, like since we've joined, we've discussed like there's going to be competitors that pop up, and still no competitors. It's tough to do. It's tough to do when you realize everything that happens. But moving on from that is Ethor. Do you have a hoarder's corner today for us, or are we taking a break?
I do. Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. Let's run it.
All right. This is Hoarder's Corner, a weekly segment that explores the world of physical collecting. And this week, we got the Salem Witch Trial Cursed Artifacts.
Let's go.
What?
Very, very.
Never heard of this, man.
I try to use the week as inspiration to give us something. I think my favorite one I ever did was the crazy Pepe week, when I just did famous frogs and really broke the entire way that these are normally structured. This will be similar. It'll be a quick one, but hopefully you enjoy a little bit of this. So, okay, the origins. I'm just going to go quickly through this. The Salem Witch Trials occurred in 1692. In Massachusetts Bay Colony. This is obviously before the United States were formed. It was fueled by a climate of fear, superstition, and religious beliefs. The trials resulted in the execution of 20 people accused of witchcraft, making it a dark and haunting chapter in American history. Salem became synonymous with witch hunts, leaving a lasting cultural impact and serving as a cautionary tale. Is anyone here big fans of Salem witch trials? I've heard of them, but I don't really know if things were for sale for them.
I did
Dude,
not.
I had zero clue, man. Zero clue.
I can tell you, I've definitely read a lot of conspiracy theories about it. How there's a belief that there was psilocybin in the bread, and so everyone was really just tripping. why this happened?
That I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm a big psilocybin fan myself, so I hope that's true. And one thing I can kind of link this to, right, researching it, and we'll go into the sales in a sec, is there's degenerates of all kinds, right? We've seen people collect famous hairs from presidents. So of course people are going to collect random 1600 documents of someone being murdered. And just like we see people now spending random money on the next big thing that they think in NFTs. And, for the lucky few, it pans out. And for a lot of people, it doesn't. And we just keep playing the game, right?
Yeah.
Keep playing the game. Yeah. I mean, honestly, right, this is kind of our whole thesis with historical NFTs is age matters once you get to a certain point. And especially in this day and age of crypto where everything accelerates so fast, right? The 2011 Namecoin stuff is only, 12 years away? But in crypto terms, that's literally like lifetimes. That's 3-4 cycles like in the past. So age does matter.
So tell me, I'm picturing like a cauldron, that they would drop the witch into or whatever. Like, you got to tell us what they're actually selling here.
Yeah, well, that would be awesome if they did that, or like burning at the stake. I believe they were all pretty much hung. But yeah, these are documents. And actually, Jake, are you able to load up some of the links? If you can quickly pull those up, it's kind of cool.
Can you send it? Did you send me the link?
It's the same link. Hopefully you have it.
Okay, yeah, I do. 1 second. Okay, continue. I'll pull it up. Cool.
So yeah, the first one is a court indictment of Margaret Scott. So this sold in auction for $31,200, which is 19 ETH, give or take. And yeah, this is a super old document. If you're on YouTube, you'll be able to see it's handwritten, of course, and kind of spooky. And it's basically telling Margaret Scott, you're being convicted of these crimes of witchcraft. And it's just kind of a reminder, the value collectors attached to documents that record early history. And yeah, it's
which raises the question: would you rather have this or the latest OCM drop? It's a tough choice, man. I don't know. I might go with the OCM drop. I don't know.
Well, OCM's cheaper, right? This was
no, it's about the same. It's like 18, 19 ETH. It's basically the same price, man. 1 Bitcoin.
All right. I think I found it finally. So here we are. All right. So which one do you want me to pull up? The auction? Christie's. Oh, wow. Christie's.
Yeah, the Salem witch trial sells for $31,000. That's that one. But I'm going to jump into the next one now, which is a very similar document. This is the deposition of Mary Daniel against Margaret Scott. So that was the indictment of Margaret Scott. This is disposition of it. And this one sold for $137,000, which is 83 ETH, which apparently a deposition is 4x an indictment. That's how they value it. But yeah, this document features detailed descriptions of Daniel's possession, which she credits to sorcery by elderly widow Margaret Scott. Daniel's account ultimately helps to convince Salem judges who did condemn Scott to death by hanging.
Wow.
Yo, if I was a rich person, I would definitely buy this for sure. This is something that would interest me.
It's crazy. Honestly, it seems like cheap, man. Think about it. I mean, look, this is like the most famous witch trial of all time. It's incredible.
Right? It's cool. Yeah. So someone must have just kept these private and probably had both and then ended up selling them. I think they sold around the same time. But this one, yeah, I mean, the article goes a little in depth with what's on that document. And yeah, it's pretty cool how she's basically saying this old woman bewitched her and, like physically assaulted her and all this other stuff. But it also seems like in today's environment, anyone that may beseech you, you can just call them a witch and then they could be hung. It's kind of scary what was going on back then.
Yep.
All right. And the last one, this one's a little different. It's actually John Proctor's house. It's still around today. It's sold maybe 5 years ago for $600,000, which in my opinion is pretty cheap because it's a house.
I tell you, the houses don't do. I've looked into this. Houses of like famous people and all this sort of stuff really don't move the needle. It barely makes it more valuable than if it was the regular house. So if that sold for 600 grand, I'm sure the neighbor's probably right in that range. Like it really doesn't do much for moving prices. Believe it or not, it's kind of one of these funny things. You would think, oh, I want to have, I don't know, Elvis's house, right? Just doesn't have. They typically don't like move the needle that much as far as pricing goes.
Speaking of that, they just destroyed Elvis's house, which is right by me down in the Las Vegas Arts District. They just demolished it about 6 months ago.
Really? It's probably tiny. It's too small, right? It's like
big piece of property, but they demolished it and they still haven't built anything on it. And it was like a big whole thing in Las Vegas of them destroying his house.
I mean, if you go to Graceland, you'll see it's like the mansions of the 50s and 60s are like tiny homes today. It's not nearly as impressive as you would think. You see the biggest superstar in the world, and you go into his living room, which at the time I'm sure was sick. It had like 9 TVs, but the TVs are each, as they're 8, 16-inch wide TVs, and it's like, this is the king of the world. And, my kid has a better setup in his bedroom. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's just different times, man.
I'm surprised they didn't make that a historic house and not let them knock it down.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, Vegas is iconic for just taking old stuff that's historical and just
tear it down, baby,
and building something new. That's just kind of our forte down here.
Just burning it into
burn it, baby. That's right, man. That's right. Out with the old, in with the new, baby.
Oh, buddy.
You were saying that the houses were small in the 50s in comparison. I'm surprised this 1600s house that was John's, that looks pretty big.
That looks. I'm surprised if that hasn't been rebuilt. That looks very large, very, very large. I would say that's definitely been rebuilt for sure.
I'm sure it's haunted. The lights probably flicker on and off. But just finishing this thought, because I didn't know about John Proctor, but he's actually best known as the lead character in the famous 1950s play The Crucible. John was played by Daniel Day-Lewis in the 1996 film adaptation. So while the details of the play are fictionalized, John Proctor was indeed accused of witchcraft during the Salem witch trials and ultimately convicted. Proctor was executed by hanging on August 19th, 1692, and his story has since become a symbol of resistance and moral courage to face injustice.
There's for me as a historical collector, there's something about vintage documents that fascinates me, especially in 1600 when you think about documenting history. That's really the only way to do it, right? There's no pictures, there's no videos. It's really just writing is the only thing that captures it.
Yep.
Stone carvings. Igley, did you have a question? Then we'll call on DJ after, or comment.
It's more of a comment. I was just gonna say I have this new token called Baby, and I would like to pay with my firstborn child.
Interesting. Oh, are we gonna teleburn it too?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Go ahead, DJ.
No, I was just going to ask about the historical documents. I don't know a lot about that with related to storing it on blockchain. But do you see Bitcoin as a solution to storing historical documents or artifacts like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Adam, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think there is an opportunity to begin doing this, and I know there are lots of people working on this. What we would call phygital in the space, right? The difficulty becomes who makes that first inscription, Is that a trusted third party or a trusted person? This is where it becomes difficult, and this is why it works best for digital items, and that's why digital items have been able to take off. But this idea of like connecting, to a digital twin or whatever you want to call it. I don't think anybody's perfected it yet, but we're seeing really nice first efforts that are already popping up, and we're seeing already. Even Peter Schiff this last week, right? He's releasing his Bitcoin ordinal to go along with his hand-signed prints, right? So it'll live as two separate items. You have the physical, and then you'll have its digital twin. They can be separated, but obviously from a collector standpoint, you're going to want to keep those together. And, so we're seeing the first shots at this. And so, I think from a provenance perspective for artwork, historic items, antiques, all this sort of stuff, there's tremendous opportunity to get into this business, because I think it's going to be the way people collect going forward for sure.
When ordinals first started popping off, my biggest interest, and it still kind of is just Bitcoin as a storage, right? As an alternative to IPFS, or even or maybe even just a complementary perspective to it. I was discussing this with somebody recently about creating some sort of a portal for whistleblowers to take their documents and set it up easily to then store it onto Bitcoin, right? Because they can never take it away. The government can never discredit you. They can't wipe it off of central servers. But also I guess if you think of present day too, which then could be considered historical, of just doing think it is kind of like an out there idea, right? Completely digital historical documents. Right? You would think that's probably going to be something that'll happen. So if you start thinking about it now of what type of digital historical documents are, right? Is it a PDF? Is it an HTML? What is it? Is it just an NFT? But I think building those type of portals that makes it easy for those who aren't in crypto to then come in and just be like, hey, this is the website here. This is how you store on Bitcoin. I think that's a huge, huge opportunity for somebody to do, or multiple people.
Yeah. I mean, what we've seen with what Zach's building, discoverability, the ability to see it and easily go through it and find and sort and filter and all that sort of stuff is super important.
Yeah, maybe Ord.io does it, right? You already got the infrastructure in play. You just say, hey, here, upload your documents here, and you can even create a section that's just
WikiLeaks 2.0, man.
Yeah, significant documents, whistleblower, come here, right? Come support your stuff. You could probably get in some interesting.
Yeah, getting a lot of nice press out of that. That's for sure.
Yeah, right. There you go. Well, at least give us credit. Give us whenever you build it, right? Or allow us to, vault. You can vault your stuff.
Will do.
Oh yeah, Zach. Oh yeah. Yeah, dude. At Hoarder's Corner, one of my favorite segments, right? Because we get to discuss the parallels between collecting with NFTs and collecting in the real world, and unsurprisingly, there's many similarities to it. Many.
I mean, it's so interesting. You think about that. This is the interesting thing too. Is we all know about every person who's listening right now has heard of the Salem witch trials, right? But how many of us know that was even up for auction, right? Mm-hmm. It's this idea of this, if nobody knows about it, it's of no value, right? So that's one of the more interesting things about NFTs, is that you have this new way of communicating and selling these things digitally to a global audience, which I think becomes very, very attractive, and I know people are working, Jake, you've seen it with sports collectibles is kind of the first kind of shots of this, where they store, a trusted third party stores, the Babe Ruth baseball, but then you can buy the NFT that goes with that baseball and trade it on open marketplaces. And then if you ever actually wanted to take ownership of the baseball itself, you can send it or burn the NFT and actually receive the baseball, right? There's just, I can't imagine that isn't going to be something going forward, because it accesses so much more liquidity to a global audience. It just makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. So before I started working at Emblem, I was going to work consulting with a very large multi-billion-dollar third-party sneaker company. I won't say the name, but
Nike.
their whole idea was to sell NFTs that represents the liquidity or the exposure to these shoes. And then they were going to set up a vault that has a camera inside these vaults that are like controlled, climate controlled and stuff. And so that the sneaker flippers can then trade the price exposure on their NFT marketplace. And then at any time they could burn the NFT and the shoes get shipped to them. Right? You're just reducing kind of friction. Like that just, it seems so obvious. Yep. You could probably do this, right? If you're, I'm surprised Sotheby's really hasn't done this yet, or Christie's, where you just take the NFT representation of whatever historical item, like even like we'll use Van Gogh, for example. You just have an NFT Van Gogh, and then people just bid on that NFT, and then you can redeem that whenever you want, or you could just go sell it on the open market and flip it. Like, how that hasn't existed yet, I don't know.
You know, honestly, all it's going to take is one, you know, really big trusted third party to do it. You know, like I think I was chatting with Jason Williams earlier this week because he was mentioning this exact thing, and I was like, you know, really in like the sports card collecting industry, like if PSA just decided, well, we're going to do this, like it would be game over tomorrow. Like they could do this tomorrow and completely dominate the market. Because imagine you send in your cards for grading, they grade them, they hold them, and then you trade the NFT against it. It's just, it's honestly, it's amazing it hasn't happened yet because it's such a no-brainer for a real trusted third party like PSA, Sotheby's, somebody like this to just basically own the entire market.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if there's like some legal reasons to it, or if they're just
that's it, man. No, for sure, dude. Yeah, you're taking custody, and that's a whole bunch of risk there for sure.
That makes complete sense. Next week, maybe I have a suggestion. Maybe do a Hoarder's Corner for Sotheby's, right? We just had the crazy Golden Goose sale of $6.5 million, like going through the large Sotheby's sales. They've got some quite historical stuff, right? Who was the dude from Citadel? I forget his name, that front ran the Constitution DAO for the Declaration of Independence for $40-some million.
Oh, Ken Griffin.
Yeah.
Tip of my tongue. Michael something, I think.
Ken Griffin.
Ken Griffin.
Yeah, Ken Griffin. Yeah, that was interesting. That brings up a whole bunch of different ideas. But Hoarder's Corner, one of my favorites. I do want to bring up another thing. I'm interested. I've been trying to talk to a bunch of devs kind of about this, and I'm gonna pull it up here on the screen because I really am interested on like if this is even possible or not. So Domo, the creator of BRC20, announced that he's joining the Alex Bridge advisory board. He said, thrilled to advise Alex in building the first on-chain indexer. BRC20 necessities robust and decentralized indexing infrastructure, and I'm looking forward to working with a team that prioritizes development in the pursuit of sustainable and trustless ecosystem. We discussed kind of like in the beginning, right, about indexing, and the issue a lot of people have is, right, Bitcoin is considered pristine assets. They're all on chain. It's simple. It's non-Turing complete. You own the assets, but you have to use these like off-chain indexers to kind of create the interpretation of the data and kind of the rules that are being played. Alex Bridge is on Stacks, so it's an L2. I had talked with a few devs. I've talked with a few devs if this is even possible on chain on Bitcoin L1. The devs that I've talked to have said it's not possible, or it's like highly expensive. If something like this can be done, right? If you create like an on-chain indexer where now everybody is kind of using the same data interpretation, it's one less kind of barrier for small teams to come in and build products. So it definitely kind of evens the playing field in essence, because right now the barrier is if you're a team who wants to build a BRC20 product, you have to basically go talk with Unisat to get access to their API so that you're using the same information that everybody else is. So the barrier there is either access to resources of either social resources or financial resources. So it's kind of dominated by big players or people who have just like access to that kind of stuff. Whereas if you have this on-chain indexer, basically just somebody like just one individual could link up to this and start building products. And so it makes it more fair, and also it makes it a more efficient market. But my question is like, is this possible? Technically, the devs that I've talked with said that you have to build this on L2, and it can't be built on L1. But I don't know if there's anyone on stage who has any kind of insight on this, or anybody in the crowd. If this can be done, though, it's completely game changing, in my opinion.
we were on the Ordinal show space the other day talking about this exact thing, and actually had a couple devs from Alex talking to it, and Sai and a bunch of other devs, on the Ordinal side. It leaned towards this probably isn't possible. I think that's the kind of takeaway. I think your take on it was right there. That certainly, as the world exists today, this doesn't seem like a fully decentralized indexer on Bitcoin is possible. But moving towards that, I think generally agreed upon is a really good idea. And whether or not that means multiple indexers, they kind of compete and go at it, or work stuff out. But definitely, it's a work in progress. I think I think at one point, it was like, it sounded to me, and I chimed in where it was like, wow, this sounds like the same conversation we were having when Yuga was doing their Trust Me Bro, launch, where you sent in your Bitcoin and it was like, you're just trusting them to, and I remember being in a space with Sai and a bunch of other devs, and they're like, this is not the way we want to do it. We want to do it like this. And it was like, we all agreed at that time too, like, agreed, this is not the way we want to do it. But look what's happened, right? And in 3 months from then, we have a fully, decentralized trading platforms and all this sort of stuff. So, the feeling is that like we got a long way to go. This is a harder lift. But these guys kind of leaning into it is a good start.
It is. Yeah. It's just, it's progress. And we've discussed this many times on this show and just over the years, that for every failed project, it's just kind of one step forward to know whether it doesn't work in this, like, because we are literally in the freest of markets, like, that probably exist. So no idea is a bad idea. I think in essence, it just like helps check it off the board because there's unlimited possibilities of what can be done. I was talking with the dev and it was kind of interesting. I said, okay, so his thing was, I guess it has to do something with like technically with the interpretation layer, where that can't actually be done. But the conversation we were having is, how do you incentivize people to use this? If it is possible to do it on Bitcoin, how do you incentivize people to use this, right? What if they just say, hey, I don't want to use these rules of the game. I'm just going to go my own, right? Like, I could build a better walled garden. Yeah. So how do you incentivize people? And I came up with an idea of like, why don't you just like, right? This is where you get kind of into like the DeFi stuff. It's like, oh, well, you could just reward people in BRC20s, right? And you could start kind of going down this like unique kind of DeFi rabbit hole of like, okay, well, if you link up to this, then you can be rewarding these BRC20s, which then you have to stake to get these, right? And whatever, right? So you can kind of get into these like fun rabbit holes. But then again, it just comes down to like, is it technically possible? From what my understanding, you can do it on L2. You could probably do it on Stacks.
Right.
But again, it's not on chain. Well, it is. Stacks is on chain because they do use proof. They use proof of transfer, I think, is their consensus mechanism. So it is related and it's on Bitcoin, but it's not the L1, which everyone in the ordinal space kind of wants.
Yeah, I mean, we all want it, but the reality is we're probably not going to have it, at least for a long time. But it almost doesn't really even matter. I mean, look, we kind of went through this when cursed ordinals came up, and there were people who were like, well, even if Ord client doesn't accept these, we're going to accept these, and we're going to build a new indexer, and we're going to, and so, these are the kind of social consensus battles that need to take place. And so, I think actually here we're not there aren't two communities that aren't in alignment. Like everybody's kind of in alignment about this. It's just a matter of how it's going to play out over time. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It just doesn't seem likely from what I hear from the devs perspective that it's possible from a technical standpoint. Which might be okay. Like, look, if there are a couple different indexers, you like the indexer in this case is the kind of arbiter of truth, right? And it's not the on-chain that we all want, but I think people can live with it, you know.
I've gotten in a few spats with some people on Twitter talking about scaling decentralized versus centralized products. And I told them, I said, we all want decentralized products, but scaling centralized products is it's so much more efficient and faster. And so there's never it's unlikely, I'll never say never, that we'll get a truly decentralized product like Bitcoin. Like, I just don't think like that's going to ever happen again, but I could be proven wrong. So everything
you're assuming Bitcoin is decentralized, man.
Right?
Or was, I don't know. Satoshi comes back tomorrow.
Game over. So it's like, okay, so what do you do? I kind of view it as I view indexers as kind of like nodes. I said when Satoshi spun up Bitcoin, he was literally the only node operator. It's similar to Unisat when they spun up the BRC20 indexer. They were the only indexer, right? They're the only essentially node operator. And now you have 5 to 10 to 20. I don't know the specific number, right? That's kind of the issues. You don't know the number, but you have multiple teams now using the same indexer, which is essentially the idea of spinning up nodes, right? And I said, so this is kind of like where the path to decentralization comes in, where if you get all these teams who are then using the same kind of server or the same indexer, then it becomes decentralized. Of course, eventually then all these teams are just going to have to build their own to use the same information to link up. But that's just kind of the route that's going. I know Oshi Finance is like kind of they've come out with some interesting ideas and interesting protocols, which I've been following along. They're probably the most, like, I guess, decentralized forward BRC20 and kind of Ordinals team. But again, it's like you're still trusting 2 people or 3 people in a bedroom to try to put this all together. And right. And then you're battling multi-million-dollar companies now at this point. And, we want the little guy to win, but it's like, sometimes you have to face reality and just say, it's network effects really run crypto. And, and it's been proven time and time again that if you're first in crypto or to a new product, you're generally going to win.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, look, they all want to get so big that they do become the source of truth. Right. And then you can't really assail them. So, we'll see how it plays out, man. It's still early days, right? I don't think there's any clear winners anywhere right now.
The earliest of days, in essence. It's a very, very exciting time to be alive. But I'm coming down to the end. I don't know what else there is this week. Have we missed anything this week that, or anyone on stage that wants to bring something up? If not, I'll probably wind this down.
Well, there was the Ordinals is retarded speech, which I finally found. It finally popped up. I'll pin it up top in the in my comment tweet. I actually linked to the whole video where you can actually watch it on YouTube, which I thought was pretty funny. I watched it so everybody doesn't have to, but it was, basically, I'll pin it now. It was basically at the core, this guy's like, NFTs are stupid, and therefore Ordinals are stupid. And then, therefore, you guys are all stupid. So it was the bit tired argument of NFTs are dumb. Basically, was the core of it. And he basically retreaded. Well, his first thing was NFTs are stupid. Period. Full stop. Therefore, Ordinals are stupid. But beyond that, what I thought was pretty funny, if you watch the whole video, is that he basically says these ideas were already talked about in 2011, 12, 13 with color coins. And so we don't need to retread those ideas because those ideas were already talked about. Stupid. We rejected them in 2011, therefore we reject them now. And it's like, dude, how crazy is that? Like, how many business ideas didn't hit because they were at the wrong time and then hit later when the timing was actually right? And to listen to I encourage you to watch it for that reason alone, where you just realize, wow, this guy misses like one of the basic tenets of business in general, which is like often stuff fails because it's at the wrong time. The market's not right. The tech's not right. Any number of millions of different, points don't hit. And then, it does hit and everybody's like, duh, I mean, how many times we've already seen it with NFTs and all the, dozens of other, I mean, literally, if you're in business at all, you see this happen literally all the time. Like the iPad was not the first pad that you could write on and do computer programs on. It was like the fifth, right? But it was at the right time, the right product, the right company, the right whatever. I mean, so that idea was so crazy to me that this guy like actually had that as his like thesis, that this idea was already tried and failed, therefore can't be tried and, you know, be good again. Was just, honestly, it was hard to listen to. I was like, wow, this is incredible. But anyway, he also hates NFTs.
It's interesting. Well, first speaking on that, the Apple idea, I actually watched a documentary recently, which I did not believe or didn't realize that Apple hasn't actually been first to anything. No. They weren't first to the computer. They weren't first to the iPod. They weren't first to the iPhone or to the smartphones or the MP3 players. And now even their Google, their glasses, they weren't first to the VR game. They just come in and they perfect it, right? And they come in at the right time, the right cultural component to it, and kind of come in and and just take it over. But I've also actually been downloading and intentionally listening to more Bitcoin focused podcasts since we just kind of hang out more in that space, trying to listen to the other side. And I recently, I think it was yesterday, I listened to the recent podcasts. And I suggest people listen to it. It's right in the beginning. Peter McCormack, he does the What Bitcoin Did podcast. I've been listening to that since literally 2017 when it came out. He had on the guys from the Lightning Network, and their first 30 minutes of conversation was all about Ordinals. And all the Lightning Network guy could just say is that Ordinals are stupid. Literally.
It's bullshit. It's bullshit.
Like, I don't get
we're going to be coming out with RGB, man. RGB is going to be amazing. It's like, bro, honestly, I think a lot of these guys have never run a business before, dude. Like literally, like they've been in Bitcoin since they were 20 years old, and they just don't understand like the way business runs. Like they've never had a failed business. They don't know what bad timing is. You know, they don't know, like, no, it's just often the dumb stuff wins because it has network effect or any number of fucking reasons, right? I mean, it's just, when you hear that, it's just like, wow, these guys are amazing. Like, read a business book, dude. Seriously. It's crazy.
His explanation, and then I'm going to call on Igly right after this. He just kept saying that there's no point. It was kind of same as that. He said there's no point to have Bitcoin hold data for images, and that's all he could say is images. He didn't even speak on the other like 12 different types of data or files that you could store in there. And Peter kind of like agrees with him. I mean, he's kind of a pushover in the shows, but and I know Peter's came out and said that he supports Ordinals actually, which is kind of cool because he has a pretty big following. But the Lightning guys, they just kept saying like, we have Lightning for that. We have Lightning for that. And it's like, no, we don't. Yeah. No, we do not. Igly, go ahead.
This is the speech that was at BTC Prague, right?
Yes.
Yep. BTC Prague. Yep.
Yes. Okay. Well, I just inscribed BTC Prague.sats.
Nice. There you go, baby.
That's how you get in on the mimetic warfare. Zach, did you have a question?
I was gonna say, have you listened to? I've been listening to this guy Jason Lowry recently on like he's been making rounds in the Bitcoin Podcast Network. He's like never directly talks about Ordinals, but he always talks about how like Bitcoin has so many uses beyond just cash, and it's kind of arbitrary that it was named Bitcoin and the first use case was cash. I've been like, I don't know, we need to get him to just come in one of these spaces or something because he seems like a smart guy, and I'd love to hear his thoughts.
Interesting. What's the name of that guy?
Jason Lowry.
He's like a MIT Air Force guy, and like a lot of his takes are like Bitcoin is warfare, and like that's kind of like the clickbait title that gets a lot of the people mad at him. But he has some cool thoughts.
Hey, if you go find a tweet from his that you find interesting, pin it up top so we can click through.
Yeah, everything's on Twitter now. Patches, good to see you. It's been a little bit. How's it going?
Hey, yeah. Just stopping in. The title got me. Because I came to a realization last night on why BRC20 is impossible to be a fungible token. It just like hit me. And I was like, it's a good alpha test. But if you mint, say, 1,000 OXBT on a rare Nakamoto Block 9 SAT, it's not a fungible token. It's a non-fungible token. And if you put that in a DEX, or if you transcribe it or you move it, you can't guarantee that it's going to be inscribed on that same SAT. And so the method in which fungible tokens are being created has this problem if rare sats exist, and it breaks because a fungible token needs to be the same value no matter what. That's fungible. It's a non-fungible token that can have a different value based on how it's inscribed. No DEX can accommodate the speculative value on that. It's a good alpha test. It needs an iteration that can actually scale because of this major failure in my viewpoint.
Well, stay tuned, because I think we may have a solution to that. That's your alpha for the day. But I like to consider BRC20s as composable ERC 1155s, right? Because it's like it's all kind of the same. Like they're NFTs. They're not 721s. To me, they're more like semi-fungible tokens because they because you can have kind of one amount in difference, but with 1155s, it's composable because you can have different amounts in each one, but they're all part of the same kind of collection. So to me, they kind of trade like a fourth asset type. I just use ERC20 because it's easy. ERC20, you have ERC 721, and then ERC 1155, right? So it's fungible, non-fungible, semi-fungible. And this, to me, like how BRC20s trade now, is kind of fourth type, which is kind of like composable, semi-fungible tokens. I kind of like to, when I was trying to explain this to my dad the other day, which I think he's listening, so shout out to you. I said BRC20s kind of trade to me. I kind of compare it to like a basket, right? So if you have like a basket of 100 apples, you can put as many apples as you want into this basket to then sell it. And then you still have this basket of your own with like an X amount in it. And that's kind of like how they trade back and forth, right? Because you have to do that transfer inscription. But it's interesting, and I kind of like it, honestly. I like when there's like these new type of asset classes that pop up, because first it leads to speculation, right? Which then leads to innovation, because speculation drives capital, which then drives kind of development. But you really don't know what's gonna come from it. And Adam and I remember when BRC20 first came out, you're like, "This is stupid," and I was like, I don't know what it is, but I feel like
I still think it's stupid, but but my opinion doesn't fucking matter. That's the beauty of free market capitalism. Is I may think this is the dumbest thing on earth, but if enough people disagree with me and they think it's valuable, then guess what? It's valuable. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of free market capital.
On it.
What's that?
Just don't make a DEX with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, actually, when I was thinking, Jake, that's an interesting analogy about the baskets with the apples inside. I would say, yes, you mint and you get that basket full of apples, but then those apples never move. It's just a messaging system tracking those apples, but the apples never actually leave your basket. So it's more like a messaging system that pretends to move apples around. I don't know.
and then, yeah, as Pat just said, it's a rare basket, right? So you got a wooden basket and a steel basket, and you got a paper basket. That's the rare baskets, painted ones.
So, like, and how does it? Do you have to check validity of a mint OXBT transaction before you purchase it, because it might have already been transferred out?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're completely dependent on these indexers to track. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I apologize. I gotta head out, but I'll be back in like 20, 30 if you guys are still going. Just gotta deal with lunch day.
You're good. Good to see you as always. Yeah, that's where the whole indexing conversation comes up, is like, how do you solve this kind of solution? And also, from what I've learned, building an indexer is also just a huge pain in the ass, which takes a long time.
Yeah. I mean, look, like we said a bunch of times, look, Counterparty was built for the Counterparty is a better version of this, right? Mm-hmm. It is right now today. Like you could go mint, Adam McBride token on Counterparty, with 1 billion issuances and transfer them around. And it's actually tracked like as tokens and stuff, but people don't care. Like they don't care. They want their BRC20s, whatever, it is what it is, More fight against the roaring sea. What are you going to do, man?
The roaring sea. Yeah, Counterparty, man. Speaking of that, Stamps announced the integration with Emblem Vault, which was super awesome to see. We've been working with them for now like a month on this. So that's going to be very exciting. I think it's going to bring additional liquidity to it. There's a few other things that we have planned with the Rare Stamp team to add to kind of make it as frictionless as possible. But those guys have been building. They're actually also diving into like the GitHub repositories of Counterparty and really exploring like some of these or some of these like entries that haven't been utilized yet. And they were bringing up stuff, and I saw Shannon was talking with them too about like different types of things that you could do on Counterparty that no one's used yet. So they're really building. They're really interested and invested in this. So and I do see them actually in the Counterparty dev chat talking with JDog about how to use some of these things that JDog has put in that no one ever really used. So. Yeah. Revitalization back on Counterparty. Let's hope so. I'm glad that they got the stamp thing. And also JDog messaged me, and the podcast is now back up.
Nice.
So I think the stamp of approval is finally there now.
Peace and love all around, man. Yes, wounds can be healed and we can move forward.
The SRC20 thing, I think, is still kind of in flux of what happens there. But
it's literally the same thing as what's happening with BRC20. It's like, what is this? It's like, the reality is it's this clunky thing that's taken off. And, we'll see where it goes, man. This is part of the fun bit. We get to work all this stuff through, and figure it out. And there are people who don't like it, like hardcore people who really hate it. But at the end of the day, they don't get to decide. Individuals get to decide. And I don't get to decide that BRC20 is stupid, I just get to decide, do I want to be a part of it? Do I want to build stuff around it? And if there are enough people there, fuck yeah, I do. Of course I do. I want to help people trade shit and move shit and create new stuff. And you know what? Who knows what it becomes? Remember, most people thought Bitcoin was bullshit. Most people still think Bitcoin is bullshit. So, let's keep going.
Look at Peter Schiff, literally on the spaces, said Bitcoin is bullshit, but I'm using it because I like this other kind of
feature. Like literally, dude was like, I've created the first real use case for Bitcoin. It's like, Peter, man, awesome, bro. You finally came around to NFTs. Let's go, baby.
And it kind of, I guess, as we kind of close this out, I missed the Wednesday show where he was like an actual featured guest. Was there anything new that he had to say about it?
I mean, not really new any more than what was on the previous show. Just that, he really like, for him, this was the first time he ever saw a real use case for Bitcoin. And like he said, maybe it's worth $1 a Bitcoin, but certainly this is like a way to track art that he found interesting. And honestly, he was great on both spaces, really open-minded. Obviously, he's shilling like crazy, like trying to sell these things.
Smart. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's tonight, actually. If you're in New York City, I'd go. Fuck, it'd be fun to go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I may go. I'm based in New York, so I think I may make the trip into the city just to see what it's like.
Yo, give us some tweets. Give us some
videos. Dude, definitely, man. Yo, bring a book. Go buy his book, because he said he would definitely sign any books, anybody who brings a book in. So, that'll get you able to press the flesh with Peter.
Yeah, I would go.
Yeah.
For sure.
If there are any like Ordinals Twitter spaces up during it, I'll see if I could jump in and maybe
that'd be smart. Yeah. Dude, you gotta let us know when you're there. You run it from live auction, man.
Yeah. So just adding back to that, what's like your takeaway from everything he said or last
he's honest with his conviction, right? He's a gold bug guy, right? So he loves his gold. But he sees this use case for Bitcoin. Obviously, it's the first one they just connected with. And I think obviously he knew about NFTs, but this seemed right. I think from like a trolling, he was going to be able to get some traction for his friend's art kind of thing. So he's a smart guy. He knew he would be able to get a lot of traction and get the NFT guys involved and probably make whole lot more money than if he didn't do it. So he's not smart. He's not stupid. But honestly, the way he spoke and was very open to our, legit questions and stuff, he was super cool. I can't speak highly enough about the way he interacted with us as a community.
Did he give you a follow though?
Oh fuck no, he doesn't follow me. I called him out for his shilling though, so there was that.
Good old Peter Schiff. All right, guys, it's Friday. Everyone, please be safe. Zach, I hope you do go to that. I'm interested to see how that turns out. What these things even sell for, right? Maybe they put up their gold bricks to kind of buy these things. I don't know. Adam, any final takeaways? Any final comments?
Well, I do think the top one already had like a $40,000 bid on it. So he's already well on his way. I'm sure he'll make a pretty penny. The NFT flippers, we were already doing the math on like, well, shit, man, we could get these on the Ordinal marketplace, so I'm sure people will FOMO into it. So that'll be fun to watch. Zach, what time's that going off tonight? Do you know?
I think it's 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be fun. Maybe we will do a space around that. That should be pretty cool.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, I'll be probably MI all weekend. I'm going on to the Strip tomorrow to celebrate the Las Vegas Golden Knights. They're shutting the Strip down from Flamingo to Tropicana, our first national championship. So that's going to be wild. Cards are probably going to be flipped. I don't know what's going on. Gonna be fun. That's tomorrow. Dogfather, any final takeaways?
Enjoy your time, man. I think it may not happen for the next few decades. So have fun, man. And yeah, rock it. I mean, there's so many great places in Vegas to go out. So I think you will find a good place.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a fun weekend, and then probably next week we'll have a new meta in the Bitcoin space. Who knows what it is? Maybe
get ready, guys. It's gonna be big.
It's something new every week in this space, man. I can't keep up with it at this point. It is literally takeaways.
This one's a game changer, man. I'm psyched for this, man.
I'm excited. Yeah. So for our product, we're releasing, we'll probably next Friday's show, we'll probably announce what this new product is, but I think this is going to literally change the game. And the teams that we're talking with about it are very excited about it as well. So stay tuned for next week. We'll maybe tease some more stuff out, but that's going to be fun. Hoarder's Corner, one final comment, and then we're closing this up.
When the Raiders finally win in another 50 years, I'll be joining you in Vegas.
I love it. All right, guys. Yeah, be safe out there this weekend. A lot of stuff going on, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, you guys.